It's me again. I don't want to bother you too much, but I know that you guys, kids, are probably looking forward to hearing out what else happens with our story for today. So I'm just going to read the next chapter. Chapter 9, The Funny Parson. There was a shocked silence because remember, Harriet is standing there with the gun pointed at Charles Walker's chest. Then Charles slowly grinned. You wouldn't shoot me, a little woman like you. The pistol never wavered. If you try to leave, you're a dead man. But why? Tobias protested. Let him go. We'll be better off without him. Rosebud here complains less than he does. Harriet kept the pistol pointed at Charles. A runaway who turns back is dangerous, she said quietly. His master or the slave catchers will force him to tell what route we've taken, who has helped us along the way, where the stations on the Underground Railroad are. I'll kill one cowardly slave before I'll let him endanger the lives of hundreds of innocent people. For half a minute, everyone stood frozen. Then Charles set his bundle down. All right, I'll go on with you. You women folk need another man to protect you anyhow. Rosebud was tempted to giggle if her throat hadn't hurt so much. She suspected that in a tight spot, Charles would look out for himself. But Harriet slowly lowered the pistol and said, That's right, we all need to help each other. Within a few minutes, they were once again moving through the night. Rosebud kept close to Mary, but they walked silently. Her throat hurt too much to talk. As the night wore on, the young girl also realized how hungry she was. She reached for the bandana tucked in her waist with the last of the bread and cheese. It was gone. It must have fallen out in the swamp. As the birds began greeting the first rays of daylight, Harriet pointed out berries that were safe to eat. Rosebud eagerly picked a handful of huckleberries and put them in her mouth all at once. They were past their prime and had just lost their juiciness, but at least they were something to eat. But she had difficulty swallowing them. As the sky got brighter, the little group hid themselves among the thick underbrush and dropped off to sleep quickly from exhaustion. In her sleep, Rosebud dreamed that someone was standing with a heavy boot on her chest. She could hardly breathe. Had the slave catcher caught her? What was going to happen to her? Why did he keep standing on her chest? Why couldn't she breathe? A coughing fit woke her, and she realized she'd been dreaming. There was no one standing on her chest, but it hurt, and she found that it was hard to get a deep breath. She squinted at the sun. By its position, Rosebud figured it must be mid-afternoon, too early to continue their journey along the river. She coughed a couple more times, then lay back on her bed of moss and leaves with her eyes closed, listening to the chit-chit-chit of the squirrels and the honking of geese flying south high overhead. It was so peaceful. It was almost easy to forget that she was hiding in the woods as a runaway. Suddenly, Rosebud had the distinct impression that someone was watching her. Her eyes flew open and she found herself staring into the face of a white boy, a little older than herself, standing about 5 feet away. Immediately the boy put a finger to his lips. Wake up the others, he whispered. They must come with me, quickly. Rosebud blinked. It wasn't a dream. The boy was still there, wearing a funny black hat with a flat brim. Again he whispered, Quickly, wake up the others. Frightened, Rosebud scrambled to her feet and woke up Harriet Tubman first, then Mary and the others. Harriet immediately stood up and went over to the boy, who looked about 15. I have been looking for thee, he said. Thee must all come with me, quickly. With that, the boy turned and started through the woods, heading away from the river. Do you know who that boy is? Hissed Charles Walker, frowning suspiciously. No, I don't, Harriet admitted, but he has the speech of the Quakers, many of whom have been our friends. I think we should trust him, but, she looked at each of them, be watchful. Rosebud brushed bits of dried leaves and moss from her dress, then had to run to catch up with the others. The boy was walking swiftly, and the fast pace made it hard for Rosebud to muffle the coughing that pushed up from her chest. If only she could get a good, deep breath. They must have walked about half an hour before the boy finally slowed and stopped. The woods opened up onto a small meadow, and in the middle sat a plain white one-story building. It did not look like a house or a barn. 4 wooden steps led to a door in front of the building, and 4 steps led out the back. Along the side were 5 windows in a row. The boy stepped into the clearing and looked around the meadow carefully. Then he motioned for the others to follow as he strode quickly toward the building and led them inside. Just inside the front door, Rosebud sank down on a bench and looked around. All she saw were 2 rows of wooden benches on either side of a large room. What was this? A church? Rosebud had never been inside one before, though her mammy used to tell her about the log cabin churches the slaves had before the white people passed a law saying slaves couldn't go to church or learn to read. Mammy said white folks thought black folks got too many strange ideas from the Bible about being free like everyone else. "Wait here," said the boy quietly. "Don't stand near the windows. I'll be back." Then he was gone. "Are we going to stay here?" said Charles. "This could be a trap." Harriet was thoughtful. "Tobias, you watch near the windows on that side, and Charles, you watch on the other. Stand so you can't be seen from outside, but be alert." We're going to have to stop there and find out what else happens tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed that.